What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on Packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. We are flying solo as of the moment. Emilio may be joining us here shortly as Jacob had other obligations in the office. And Tim is doing way more important things right now. Now, we are live on YouTube, Facebook, X, and Rumble here to talk some Packers this evening. Hopefully, everybody's having an awesome Friday night. Man, there's no better way to wrap up the week than getting on here, hanging out with you guys and gals, talking a little Packers football. As we got several topics we're going to dive into. We're going to hit on some of the questions in our Patreon group, kind of get a feel for how everybody's what's at the forefront of everybody's mind, I guess you could say, getting ready to go into the draft here. Yeah, everybody fired up about it being Friday. And Blake B in the chat says, I've been waiting for Ryan Schlipp to dig into the Dane Brugler Beast Guide that just dropped. I want the dirt on all these prospects' backgrounds. I think you're going to be happy with the show tonight. And by the way, that's one of my favorite things that Ryan does every single season, just him kind of going through the different scouting reports. And you know, he and I both have a great deal of respect for Dane Brugler. I love what he does. I think he's very detailed. He's very meticulous. He doesn't take the easy way out is what I appreciate about it. And I understand that some of the other guys like the Daniel Jeremiahs and people like that, they're way too busy working with networks, things like that, to dive into every prospect. But Dane Brugler, man, he covers all the bases. And listen, it's not to say he's perfect. I'm sure he's got plenty of scouting reports he could tell you he got wrong, or not necessarily wrong. You're talking about what these players did at the college level, but you're trying to predict how they're going to project to the NFL. And guys, it's damn near impossible. It is impossible. It's impossible to bat 100. Bat 1,000. It's impossible to bat 500 and get half of them right. Successful GMs, I don't know the exact number. I've heard people say anywhere from 15 to 30% success rate in the draft, and that's considered, man, that's a successful draft. So it just depends on who you listen to in that regard. And that's what cracks me up about the draft nicks every year. If you guys haven't heard that term, I'm a draft nick. So it's not, if you consider yourself a draft nick, there's no slander there. It's just we all are trying to figure out how can we best not really predict, but understand the draft every year. And the people that, hey, I told y'all that guy was going to be good. Yeah, you told us 5,500 other prospects were going to be good over the last 3 years too, and you hit on 3. And you're like, we're all guilty of that, right? I try not to be that dude on Twitter that goes around saying, hey, man, we got that one right. We got that one right. It's fun when you hit on one and you go, man, we really caught. Like Ryan, for example, Pack Daddy here on Packernet Podcast, he hit on Zach Tom. I'll never forget it. He was the only guy on the face of the earth I heard talking about Zach Tom. And lo and behold, they draft him. I'm like, hey, Ryan got his guy. And bam, he's about to get paid, right? And rightfully so. I mean, the dude is an absolute stud. So we're going to dig in to a few prospects and use Dane Brugler's his scouting report. And if you guys are in the Patreon group, you've probably already seen the articles we're going to cover. So I'm really excited about that. Shout out to Pointer Doug becoming a new member here on YouTube. We'll make sure you're entered into the giveaway. By the way, that we were going to do it on tomorrow's show, but there's not going to be a night show tomorrow. We're going to do a morning show because I've got a nephew's high school graduation to attend, and we got, of course, the after dinner and all that. So no show tomorrow night, but we will be doing tomorrow morning. So I thought, let's wait till Sunday's show to do the giveaway. So you guys will have an extra day. If you want to get yourself entered into the contest to get the autographed rookie Katan Oladapo card, all you got to do is be a member either here on YouTube or what I recommend, whichever you prefer. But if you're a member on Patreon, that's where you're getting a lot more bang for your buck. For $3, you're getting access to everything over there. All the scouting reports we're throwing up, all the articles we're writing, the Chalk Talk episodes, all that stuff. So appreciate you, Pointer Doug. If you want to support here on YouTube, that's another way to do it, and we greatly appreciate that for sure. It's just Patreon is definitely the best way to support the show. People ask that all the time, hey, what can we do? And that's the way we roll. So let's hit these questions in the Patreon group. It's another perk to being in there is you can ask questions for the show, same as super chats here. And we try to get to regular chats in the live stream as well. Sometimes, obviously, you guys know it either goes off the rails or we get too far off topic. We don't get a chance to hit them. But here's what Todd Larson asked. I'm wondering if maybe we have a little bit of a problem with our mock drafts, considering the last few days of Goody. Last few drafts of Goody. He seems to group together several picks for what the room he is trying to upgrade. think about it. 3 safeties, 2 tight ends, a crap load of receivers. This draft is defensive tackle. So I believe he will rebuild the room with a 330-pound and a true three-tech defensive tackle. So he's thinking more along the lines of, let's go get a 1-tech and a 3-tech. I like it. And I wouldn't be surprised if he took a third defensive tackle, I think is what he was saying there, late round. So I believe we trade back first round, get someone like Grant or Tyleek, then come back and get a player like TJ Sanders. If the trade back works right, we may pick up a wide receiver between these 2 defenders, then fill positions of need from there. Just a thought, what do you think? I think it's a great game plan, Todd. I think it's well thought out. Now, the only thing that I see in that idea there that might be I would push back a little bit is the reason we took so many safeties because there was no one left in the safety room, if you'll remember, right? We cleaned house. And that's why I always kind of gave Joe Barry a little bit of a pass, like, we pretend like Jeff Hafley just come in here and completely turn this defense around. Boy, we got rid of our starting Mike and Devondre Campbell. We got rid of both of our safeties, our starting safeties, which was Jonathan Owens and Darnell Savage, right? So we kind of scrapped that whole room, and that creates more voids. Now, when you look at defensive tackle this year, we lost TJ Slayton, so there's one void, right? And then you got to look at Kobe Wooden, in my opinion. And nothing personal toward Kobe Wooden. I just think he's the guy, if we're going to let one go, that's probably him. Or if you're going to push a guy down and maybe try to slide him onto the practice squad, it's probably him. He just, 50 PFF grade. He kind of hasn't lived up to the expectations. He's also been kind of banged up. So it would take him moving off the roster to justify taking 2 defensive tackles. So you got to kind of model your roster out and look at it and go, okay, how many spots are actually there to fill, if that makes sense. So, I would be totally on board with him taking 2. And again, nothing personal toward Kobe Wooden. He could play football around me in his sleep, right? But I do think we can do better than that, at least what we've seen up to this point. And who knows, maybe you go 1 defensive tackle and Kobe Wooden comes out this year, all extra motivated and just plays like gangbusters. That would be absolutely awesome too. So great comment, great question there, Todd. Appreciate you. Andy Monday, Clayton and the boys. He says, do you think that over the years, a front 7 defender's power rush or speed rush stays intact longer? Because of inevitable injuries, it's the power rush usually, right? Perhaps that's Goody's thinking when choosing between an edge with speed and an edge with power. I think you're spot on, Andy. And I'll tell you, when you get asked questions like this, I try to remove my personal opinion because I'm a dumb redneck from Tennessee that don't know anything. I try to look at what people that I respect in the industry think about that. And you guys know I've been very, very vocal. Greg Cosell is at the top of the list for me in terms of guys and gals that scout out football players and understand what pro football teams are looking for. And he always says you've got to have a power element to your pass rush. You've got to. Each player. That's the only knock on James Pierce Jr. You go, okay, he's a little undersized, but he's got great reach, and that's huge in rushing the passer. But he's not a power rusher; he's a speed rusher. And I like what Andy's saying here because that's the first thing that's going to go as you get older is your speed. And people say, well, you're going to get weaker too, probably, but not quicker than the speed goes, right? And on top of that, if you learn how to still rush with power using your hands, whether it's a punch, pull, and swim, whether it's a dip and rip, all of those things that you could even incorporate power into, because if you set it up with that straight arm rush or just a straight bull rush, those type of things, the swat and swim where you're just literally smacking somebody to the side and swimming over top of them, if you can set those things up, then you can learn to use your hands. Now you've got a counter move to your counter moves to your counter move, right? Those things are absolutely huge. But yeah, to me, this is something I've been very inaccurate on in the past as just a football fan. I didn't realize how important the power rush was. And that's why I'm so high on Walter Nolan when other people aren't. People will look at other pass rushers and go, I like him better. I like that one better. He's more of an athletic freak. That may be the case. But Walter Nolan, Greg Cosell's words, not mine, and several other people, Adam Kaplan and other people that covered the draft said, Walter Nolan is this year's Jalen Carter. Now, he might not be quite as good, but the way he rushes the passer, Greg Cosell said it best. He said, as I'm watching Walter Nolan's tape from 23 and 24, and I just see him absolutely dominate great SEC offensive linemen, just driving them into the backfield. He said, I think of Jalen Carter every time. And I remember Jalen Carter being extremely high on our board when he came out. And why was he so high? Because Greg Cosell said this dude. Greg Cosell said the year before Jalen Carter came out of college into the draft, he said Jalen Carter was the best interior defensive lineman in the entire. He would have been the best in the draft. And then he goes back to college another year and comes out and he's the best defensive tackle. Now there were some personal issues there, right? That obviously have not translated over to the NFL. He seems to have, stayed in line. And many people said if they could put him with his teammate there, Jordan Davis and other Georgia Bulldogs, maybe they can hold each other accountable in Philly. It worked out. And that's the other thing. Like when you do mock drafts, I'm just kind of thinking out loud now. Andy, it's a great question and a great comment there, Andy, because it does kind of trigger a bunch of thoughts. How many times have you done a mock draft? People, well, we're good at that position. We need this position, right? You'll see them all over Twitter saying that. I wonder how many Philadelphia Eagle fans were saying that when they took Jordan Davis and the next year they took Jalen Carter. And then I think they went interior defensive line again last year, right? When you do that, it allows you to just let Milton Williams walk, and now you're capitalizing on a much cheaper rookie contract with a defensive lineman, right? Or, if they're on that same rookie contract, and then when you get the extension, the first year of that cap hit on the new extensions, almost pennies on the dollars compared to what it's going to blimp up to. So, you can't get caught up in the whole, well, we're good at that position, or we already drafted that position last year, right? The goal is, what are the most important positions and how do we fill those and keep that rotation going? And also what we led the show with, you're going to miss on picks. Everybody misses on picks. So keep swinging on those important positions so you hit. Let's say you hit on 1 out of 3, right? That's why I'm not ruling out edge defender. If we have time tonight, we're going to talk edge defender. That's kind of how I see that. And again, I'm sure there were Eagle fans going, I can't believe we took another defensive tackle. They won the Super Bowl. Worked out, right? So build the trenches. Build the trenches. As Emilio says, build the wall, which is ironic because he's the interim Mexican on the show here. He cracks me up. So Andy Monday says, you recently talked about Jack Sawyer and how having Tyleik Williams on the D-line probably inflated Sawyer's performance. Remember Miles Jack coming into the draft? I watched film on him shooting gaps and making stops, but I noticed who was eating blocks to help to make that happen for Jack. Kenny Clark. Go back and watch it if you have the time. That's interesting, man. I don't know enough about that situation. If we get a chance, we'll go check it. I didn't realize that Kenny Clark and Miles Jack played together, but I'm telling you, that's a real thing. Just like it's a real thing when you've got, 2 different pass rushers, whether it's 2 D tackles or 2 edge defenders. And I can't remember if Miles Jack probably played a hybrid type backer, I would imagine, especially with his athletic prowess. It's kind of like with Notre Dame. I'm a big Notre Dame fan, and they've got a position called Viper, where it's a pass rushing outside linebacker. It's almost like they like to play a lot of 4-3 under, 4-3 over. It's a multiple style defense essentially, and you got a guy that can rush the passer but also drop. And they're constantly rotating guys in and out of that position. But if you get to the point where you've got 2 pass rushers that are effective on a defensive line, now you've got to decide which one made the other look better, right? A good example was last year's draft. I believe it was last year's. Byron Murphy. You guys remember we had Byron Murphy really high. We had T'Vondre Sweat really high. And we kept saying, yeah, but which one's better? Is the better one making the other one look, a little more talented than they actually are? And, if I had to pick between the two, this is me personally, I liked T'Vondre Sweat, but I would have picked Byron Murphy. Byron Murphy didn't do anything this year. T'Vondre Sweat lit it up, according to PFF. And on top of that, T'Vondre Sweat's RAS was a 3. Now, immediately you'll get the Packer draft nicks that say, well, we'd never take them. You can't take them. The RAS is too low. I can't remember who drafted T'Vondre Sweat, but I bet you they're damn glad they did. And that RAS is important, don't get me wrong, but it ain't everything. At the end of the day, man, the goal is to see ball, get ball, and if someone else has the ball, hurt that man who has that ball, right? And keep the ball away from that bad man. So I think it's important to kind of put everything into perspective. And that's why when we do our draft board, the way we do it is so you've got this visualization of everything across the board, and you can compare apples to apples with everybody. Like, we'll go ahead and drop this down. Thanks to everybody with the Patreon questions. Definitely appreciate it. That's one of my favorite things about the Patreon group. So just another perk of being in there and supporting the show. If I pull up our draft board here real quick, I think I've got the right one here. Let me make sure. Yeah. So if I pull this up real quick, and hopefully y'all can see this okay. Let me try to get it a little bit, there we go, a little larger for you. So if you look at our board, and I was doing just a little bit of research earlier with the top 30 visit that or not a top 30 visit, but a recent, I think it was like a Skype interview the Packers did with guys. But if you look at these positions here and all these players, right, and across the board, we've got everything listed out. The PFF 22 position ranking, 23 ranking, 24 ranking, where they were on the PFF big board, where they were on the consensus big board, where Daniel Jeremiah had them. And I always, like, we just put in a ton of Kyle Krabs from the 33rd team. We just put in a ton, I think like 100 more grades in. So the board has just grown and maneuvered and switched and flipped and flopped. But I always keep in the earliest grades because that's the most important to me. As the draft grows near, people change their mind. They like this. I want to know your earliest prediction because I can go get the most recent stuff. I can just go to their website and pull it up. I want to know what people thought about prospects as soon as the season wrapped up, because that's what's fresh on your mind is the tape. What's fresh on your mind is who was successful. What's fresh on your mind is how did they contribute to their college program, as opposed to, I tell you, man, that 40-yard dash was pretty impressive. Let's bump him up 40 spots. You understand what I'm saying? So, like, that stuff is way more important. I will always lean on the tape and what they did on the field as opposed to the underwear Olympics. Now, that's what's so appealing to me with James Pierce Jr. is James Pierce Jr. was always ranked high before he ran the 4.47 40 at the combine. So it's like there was always production there. Doesn't mean he's the perfect fit. Again, he doesn't rush with power, so that worries you. But across the board, you can compare all these. Like if we go down right here, let's say with Tet McMillan, over here on the right, and you can't see it because of our QR code there, but that's Greg Cosell. Gave him a 5-point bonus. Greg Cosell absolutely loved him, right? Well, Mason Graham, he wasn't like overall impressed with Mason. He's not saying Mason Graham isn't worthy of the 4th overall pick. He was just like, yeah, what you see is what you get there. We know how good he is. So I'm not going to give him a huge bonus, right? But Tet McMillan, he loved Tet McMillan. Another one he really liked was Cam Ward. He was on Cam Ward at the end of the college football season, really going in off of Cam Ward's tape from last year. Greg Cosell was like, this dude has elite level traits. So that stuff you can compare apples to apples across the board. Now you see the RASs. If they get that 5-point bonus, that means it's a 9+ RAS, right? 3 is an 8+. 1 is a 7+. A 6 means they got a perfect 10 or a 999. We just rounded it up. So when you begin to look at prospects across the board, the more boxes you have filled up, they should really pique your interest. And it just so happens one of those top 30 visits is Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M. And look, he's got the Senior Bowl bonus as well, right? That means that I think it was Daniel Jeremiah we used for that. He picked his standouts all week long, the guys who really popped off the tape when it came to the practice footage as well as the game itself. So we gave him a 5-point bonus with the Senior Bowl. That typically translates. Another one was Mike Green, right? Edge defender. Another one, Walter Nolan. So when you get these players that have this stuff all the way across the board, like Shamar Stewart got the Senior Bowl bonus. RAS, he got the maximum bonus. Greg Cosell gave him a 1-point bonus. He locked him, but he's like, he needs to learn how to rush the passer. Like he's just an athletic freak. He just needs to learn how to rush the passer. Now, if you go down to my boy Walter Nolan here, why did I like him so much? Senior Bowl bonus. Greg Cosell said he's the best defensive tackle in this entire draft. Yes, that means better than Mason Graham as well, who's in the 4th spot. And you hear that and you probably think, well, Clayton, why don't you put him above him on your board? That's not how our board operates. You put all the data in, you remove your personal bias, and where the players fall, they fall. That's kind of how we like to do it. So I'm really happy with the way it's come together this year. And Emilio has been so helpful in bouncing ideas off of Tim and Jacob as well. Emilio has just worked his ass off on this board, and it's really, really come together. So anyway, I just wanted to explain that because that's kind of how I look at that. And you can compare these guys across the board. Like if it's Shamar Stewart on the board and it's James Pierce Jr. and you look at him, okay, James Pierce Jr. is 1 tier higher than Shamar Stewart. So that would say, okay, you should probably take him. Not necessarily. He doesn't meet the athletic threshold for the Packers. Shamar Stewart does. Okay, well, that's 1 notch for Shamar Stewart. He didn't perform in the East-West Shrine Bowl or the Senior Bowl. James Pierce Jr. didn't. Shamar Stewart did, and he stood out, right? RAS, James Pierce Jr. got a 9+, but Shamar Stewart had a better RAS. James Pierce Jr. did not get a Greg Cosell bonus, but Shamar Stewart did. That's where you kind of look at it and go, damn, maybe we like Shamar Stewart a little bit better. When you get in those clusters where they're close, you got to make that decision of what's most important to you. So anyway, it's just a little glance into the draft board. And again, you guys have access to that over at the PFF. At the at the Patreon group, just patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access. Go to the chat. You'll see there's just a designated locked chat that's always going to have an updated link. And I got to get the new one out tonight because, like I said, the board shuffled big time today. So, all right, let's get into the first topic here. Appreciate everybody in the chat. If you would hit that like button for us, feel free to subscribe to the channel if you're new here and let us know what we can do better. And if you don't like the show to the point where we can't save it, then hey, appreciate you swinging through, man. We appreciate it if you don't tell everybody how bad it sucks. So here's an article we put together earlier, and it's just real short. This is some Dane Brugler stuff in here that I'm really excited to share with you guys and gals. Make sure you go get his guide, The Beast. If you're a member of the, I think it's The Athletic through the New York Times, I believe it is, it's only like $1 or $2, something crazy. And you get access to The Beast. I mean, I'm almost positive I didn't pay extra for it. I'm just a member over there, so you get access to it because Dane Brugler's doing work with them. So make sure you check that out. 2 wide receivers on the Packers' radar who have separated themselves, okay? And what do I mean by separated themselves? Meaning they're the top receivers on our board that the Packers have met with in the top 30 visit, okay? So I said in terms of top 30 visits, Packers GM Brian Gutekunst seems to be considering taking a wide receiver in round 1, something that's not been done in 23 years when the general manager Mike Sherman selected Javon Walker with pick 20. Those receivers are listed below along with their ranking on our PTA Big Board and Dane Brugler's scouting report for both. So let's kind of dive into these guys. Top one on our board that the Packers had a top 30 visit with is Emeka Egbuka. He's in the 20 spot on our PTA Big Board. Here is what Dane Brugler had to say about Emeka Egbuka. A 3-year starter at Ohio State, Egbuka worked primarily out of the slot, and offensive coordinator Chip Kelly's multiple heavy movement scheme. 81.1% of his 2024 snaps came in the slot. Over his 4 seasons in Columbus, he played next to 4 wide receivers who ultimately became top 20 draft picks. It's Marvin Harrison Jr., Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, and Jackson Smith-Njigba. And 2 likely future early round draft picks in Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate, which made it easy to overlook his offensive impact. But Egbuka finished his career with the most receptions, 205, in Ohio State history. I'm going to say that again. He's got the most receptions in Ohio State history. And second in receiving yards, 30 yards behind Michael Jenkins. If you want flashy, skip to another report. If you want a savvy, rugged receiver with NFL-ready instincts, Egbuka fits the bill. He skillfully attacks the leverage of the coverage and with manipulative pacing and footwork to cleanly enter and exit the break point. Although his targets will be more crowded in the NFL, his tracking skills and hand strength will be valuable assets. Overall, Egbuka is a very quarterback-friendly target, not because he's bigger, stronger, or faster than defenders, just because he understands detailed subtleties to uncover and command the catch point. Though he can line up outside, he would thrive in a Rashee Rice-like slot role where he can expand a play-calling menu with his diverse skill set. Now, what is he talking about with leverage of the coverage? We've talked about this time and time again. In Matt LaFleur's offense, there are a bunch, and I mean a bunch, of choice routes. To play F, you got to know all the choice routes. You got to know, depending on the leverage in which the cornerback is playing you, the DBs are playing you, that's going to determine what route you run. Like I use the wolf concept as a good example of a choice route kind of combo, right? If you're in the 2, imagine the 1 outside and then the 2 in the slot, and you're running wolf. What that is the 1 runs an out and the 2 runs a corner. Well, if they're playing some kind of coverage where they've got a deep third over top of that corner, you as the slot, if there's a choice route active on that, and it sounds like Matt LaFleur has them all over the joint in his scheme, if you're running that corner route and you see that deep third immediately jump to outside leverage, then what you're going to want to do is sell the corner and then maybe throw a different route in, and they've got those baked into the offense. Now, that might be kind of a corner dig where you're going to just take a 2-step into the corner, shuffle it down, and then bring it back almost like a Dino, like a whip or something. So if you do that, you've got to be able to read the DB first and foremost. Then you've got to have the ability to break at the right time and create the chemistry with the quarterback, get your head around, make the catch. All those things have to be just a split second. That's why Aaron Rodgers got so frustrated with that young receiving core. And I remember, people getting upset with Aaron. And look, I would rather my quarterback not be complaining about teammates on the field. I got you. But it's frustrating when if the receiver is not going to read the defense correctly, then what if he didn't read that outside leverage correctly? He ran the corner route and you're expecting him on that corner dig. And then you shoot the ball across the middle. That's why you end up being hesitant on letting the ball go. And I'm telling you, man, if you hesitate for a split second in the NFL, you're screwed. So why is Egbuka, to me, a little more appealing or just as appealing as other receivers that's got huge size and this and that? We all think, well, go get Jaden Higgins. And I love Jaden Higgins, don't get me wrong. Just 6'4", good speed, throw the jump ball, right? Matt LaFleur's offense does not operate that way. It doesn't. And again, I'm not going to sit here and play into the whole idea that our offense all of a sudden sucks because we didn't win the Super Bowl. We had a damn good offense last year. The main issue with our offense last year was turning the football over. Jordan Love being banged up all year long, not being able to use his legs the way he needs to, not being able to step into throws the way he needs to, and us throwing interceptions was the main issue. It wasn't, in my opinion, the receivers. Now, the drops, yeah, you got to clean them up. But the fact that you still had such a talented or effective passing game with those drops really says a lot. It says a lot about what Matt LaFleur was able to do with the quarterback battling 3 injuries, being inaccurate at times, and not being able to scramble, and the receivers having a drop issue, right? Egbuka, great hands, understand choice routes. Greg Cosell said you're getting a 10-year vet the day he walks into the building is what he said. Like, you want to clean up some of that stuff. And the argument immediately with like a player like Egbuka is, okay, you don't have that big jump ball guy. You don't have that boundary X guy. No, you don't. But what you've got is a guy who can understand all the choice routes, pick up the system quick. That's the strength of his game. A crisp route runner, strong hands, all those things you need. And you can now put him in the F and put Jaden at Z. And those are very interchangeable. F is basically a moving Z, right? So you may have a guy line up in the slot, and then the Z moves over. Now he's technically in the slot. That's why I'm saying, like, it's important to have 2 of those guys. And with Dontavion Wicks' drop issue last year, you could tell they really tried to incorporate him somewhat into that role along with slot. And then they wanted to work him into boundary X when we had the issues with Romeo Doubs, whether it was with the suspension and the injuries. It would be huge to have someone like Egbuka. So again, you've got Tet McMillan, then Egbuka on our list. Okay. And then after that, I think it's Luther Burden. And then I'm trying to remember who the next one was, just in order here. Egbuka, then Luther Burden, and then it's Matthew Golden, which is actually going to be the next guy we're going to talk about here in a second. But let's move on through the scouting report here. Strengths. Innate ball judgment skills to track. So how many times have we seen, like even Christian Watson has struggled with this, right? And he's gotten way better now. These receivers, MVS, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but MVS looked like me trying to track a deep ball. He could scorch the defense, and boy, he couldn't track the ball worth crap, right? That is absolutely huge. I'll never forget, like playing baseball growing up, I was always a shortstop, always middle infield and pitcher. And when I got to the high school level, it was actually my 8th grade year, I made the varsity high school team my 8th grade year. And Coach Morris was like, we got to get him in the lineup. So they put me in left field because we had studs in the middle infield already, seniors and juniors, right? They put me in left field. It looked like I was on skates out there. And it's because trying to track the ball, controlling your head jarring as you're running is so much more difficult than people understand. It's Coach Lynn, if he's in the chat, and I haven't been able to keep up with the chat, I apologize. He can tell you this, man, coaching receivers. It is one of the, you've either got it or you don't. This boy didn't have it. Tracking water, trying to, I could track fly balls and catch them, but boy, it was ugly. It was ugly. So anyway, limber upper body and above average hand strength to finish grabs from difficult angles. Always had feel for commanding catch point. 16 combined interceptions as sophomore and junior DB in high school. That's wild. So he always had a feel for commanding the catch point, controlling that catch point where the DB and the receivers there at the same time. Well, he played DB in high school and actually had 16 interceptions between his sophomore and junior year. That's wild. Football IQ and toughness are, quote, already on a pro level. You're hearing Dane Brugler say it after Greg Cosell said it. So you can check the box there for sure. According to Ohio State assistant coach Brian Hartline. Gains ground quickly versus off coverage and a magnet to coverage voids. That's what we're talking about. Just finding those voids, finding those open spots. Knows how to set up defenders and snap off stem regardless of the route. Consistently works back to the football and extends to meet it, especially on crossers and overs. Finds rooms to operate even when the field shrinks. 15 of 24 career touchdown catches came in the red zone. So think about that. You see a guy of his size and you think, all right, that's not a red zone threat. That's one of his important aspects of his game, because the reality is when you get down there and that back line of the end zone becomes 3 extra defenders essentially, right? And it shortens everything. You got someone like Egbuka that can play in those tight spaces, as where someone like a Jaden Higgins or a Ted McMillan might not be able to find that void as easy, being a bigger body receiver and used to stretching the field and having space to work, right? So there's definitely a pro and con to that aspect. He showed clear improvements as a blocker, asked to be puller to stone middle linebackers on super counter on 2024 Michigan State tape. He was a lead blocker pulling against middle linebackers in the Michigan State game. So go back and watch the highlights from the 2024 Michigan State Ohio State game and probably try to find some inside runs, and you'll see him probably getting up in the middle there and smacking linebackers in the mouth. That's pretty cool. Experience as a punt returner, 5.4 yards per attempt, and kick returner, 28.2 yards per kick return. It seems like Goody's kind of got his eye on several people that might be able to be returning kicks too. That's really cool. Let's see. NFL scouts say he competes with perfectionist mindset and doesn't waste an ounce of his talent. Voted a 2024 team captain and veteran presence, made the Buckeyes receiver room better. He joined Marvin Harrison Jr. as only players in school history with multiple 1,000-yard receiving seasons. I don't know how you can look at that and go, yeah, he's worthy of a first-round pick, And again, I'm not going to let the size deter me from that dude. It's just not going to happen. So let's see. He said he was a captain. I just want to check something real quick and make sure we got that in here. I don't know if we got him listed as a captain. We do. Okay, we're good. So he's a captain. The Packers met with him. He meets the threshold as well, and the Packers had a top 30 visit with him. The only thing he's missing is the Senior Bowl, to be honest with you. So I don't think he participated in the Senior Bowl. So, all right. Moving along. Now let's talk about the weaknesses. Solid size, strength, and speed, but not exceptional in any of those areas, so not a physical freak. Physical press can slow him early in the route and diminish vertical capabilities. I like how it says early in the route, which means he's probably winning on the backside of that route. Emilio, you jump in there whenever you want, buddy. No rush at all, man. No rush at all. His few drops were a result of thinking about first move before securing the ball, so maybe needs to focus a little more on catching the ball as opposed to what's coming after catching it, right? Has some wiggle after the catch, but didn't force as many missed tackles as one might expect. Needs to drop pads as a ball carrier and be more physical as a finisher. Diverse and active as a blocker, but needs to do a better job controlling and maintaining angles once engaged. His left ankle injury as a junior, which required tightrope surgery, October of 2023, sidelining him for the 3 games and parts of the others. So there's some of the weaknesses, because there's no perfect prospects, right? It's just they don't exist. But you can see, man, a long list of strengths there with Emeka Egbuka. He's one of these guys that I'm really excited about. If he's there at 23, sign me up. Emilio, I know you probably caught the backside of this, man. Appreciate you jumping on here. I know you were like me out there in that rain today, man. Are you waterlogged?
Yeah, dude, I needed a hot shower. It was cold.
There ain't nothing better than a hot shower after a rainy day moment.
No. And cold and wet, 3 times over? Then it dried up for a second. Then I had to throw the sweatshirt on the rest of the day. It's like, what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I was listening to it, man. I've honestly really kind of always liked Egbuka. I just never really thought it was going to happen. But after we've done a little bit more diving into it, I think there's a real good chance, either that or maybe a trade back or something like that. I think that's a possibility. Out of all the ones we probably brought in, I think I'm most on Egbuka. And how can you go wrong with an Ohio State receiver that's taken off? Like you were saying, everyone that's come into the league, and then Jeremiah Smith, dude's working around it. Working around all these elite players. So I like him.
Yeah. And let me see here. We had a couple of things. All right, we're good there. Let's see what the chat's saying. J. Cole says, I wouldn't be surprised if we drafted him. Let's see. Blake B said, I'm on the Egbuka train. H.E. Solder, team captain. Egbuka is a Packer. I like it. Clint, the armchair quarterback, he looked good in green and gold. Seems like everybody's pretty much on board.
Yeah.
And again, it doesn't mean that if someone in our top 10 were to drop to that spot that we wouldn't go, oh, man, we'd rather have him, right? But if Egbuka is the best on the board at 23, man, shoot, yeah, let's go. I'm excited about it, man. I hope somehow he makes it to the Packers. And here we go. Deadfish says, if the Packers take him, I'll be okay with it, but I want the Packers to take Nolan, Grant, or Hanson. Who's Hanson? Who am I thinking of? Hanson. That may be a typo. That may be a typo.
Harmon, maybe?
Harmon, I bet. Harmon, there you go. Yeah, and I would be okay with any of those three, to be honest.
I mean, the way the board's looking, if you got a couple of those perfect fits, you got what TJ Sanders is kind of out there. I mean, I just think it's a super deep D-line draft that if you find your receiver that you want early, take him because you can still find a pretty decent D-lineman later, round 2, round 3, round 4. Like, it's super deep.
Yeah. And it's so hard for me to say that, but as we get closer to the draft, I'm coming to that realization, like, it would probably make sense to wait on D tackle and edge if you're going to go that route because there's so many in this draft, man. You
right.
can really maximize. And no worries, Deadfish said, sorry about the typo. Man, you know who you're talking to? I typo while speaking. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's all good. It's all good. All right, so that is, again, Emeka Egbuka, and that's Dane Brugler's breakdown of him. Let's move on to the next guy, and it's Matthew Golden. And listen, I've kind of grew off of him. Matter of fact, let's hit this super chat before we jump into it. United Bates, thank you for the super chat, buddy. He says, when Nixon said he doesn't want to return kicks anymore, what's your opinion on the Packers organization take on that? I think that they got to prepare that he's going to not want to return kicks. And I know there's some people that are going, well, you can make him return kicks. You can. You could probably force him out there, say it's conduct detrimental to the team, but don't think that's best for the team.
Yeah, you could make him return kicks and he could get stuck again like he did in the playoff game. And
and it seems like everything that, like one of the guys we're going to cover here in a second, if we have time, the new top 30 visit, late round prospect, never heard of him. Guess what one of his strengths are? Kick return.
Yep.
So it's like I think that Goody is really looking into different players that could potentially return kicks.
And you know what that would do for a rookie is like, hey, you have one other chance to make this team. You know what I mean? Like if you are going to be our return specialist, hey, we'll find a spot on the roster for you, right? If you're that good with the ball in your hands off a kick, like use that to your advantage. Get on the field any way you can. As a freshman, as a sophomore, junior, you're trying to get on the field just in college, whatever. Let's give yourself any opportunity you can, because obviously all these guys that aren't drafted first or second probably are just going to be special team aces anyway. That's where you get your hay. That's how you get on the field, and then we can grow from there.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a great question, Bates. Appreciate the super chat, man. All right, moving on to the next prospect here. We only had 2 that we highlighted that were going, all right, man, if the Packers are going to go wide receiver in the first round, this is another guy. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that Ted McMillan isn't going to be, end up being a top 30 visit, or even if he's not a top 30 visit, doesn't mean they're not excited about him too, right? Same thing with Luther Burton. There's a lot to like about LB3. It's just these are the guys that the top 30 visits are already in the bank on, right? And we'll update this article as we go along throughout the year. So in the 37 spot, Matthew Golden, wide receiver out of Texas. Now going into this, I'm thinking, and I haven't even read this article yet, guys. I put it together without reading it. I want it to be organic on the air, and let's all kind of uncover this information together. On the surface, I go, 23 is a little bit of a reach for Matthew Golden for me. Now, that's what our board says. Goody may have him higher than Egbuka, right? He's definitely a burner. What do you have, 4.29 speed, I think it was, Emilio, something like that. So he's definitely got the speed to take the top off the defense. Love this shot right here too, by the way, the one-handed grab in the end zone. Just a great shot. So here we go, Matthew Golden. Here's what Dane Brugler had to say about him. 1-year starter at Texas. Golden was the Z receiver in head coach Steve Sarkisian's RPO pro-style spread offense and was used across the formation with heavy motions, 76.1% of the snaps wide, 23.9% in the slot. After 2 promising seasons in Houston's air raid scheme, he was an underrated addition for the Longhorns in 2024 and proved especially valuable when it mattered most, averaging 102.8 receiving yards over his final 4 games. As they're coming down the stretch and they're looking to go on a playoff run and they're looking to battle in the SEC championship, that's when he played his best games. Make a mental note of that.
Yep.
That's important. I mean, that is really important. SEC championship and 3 playoff games is it highlights. Fluid in and out of his breaks. Golden shows a plan as a route runner. I love his ability to break down corners by keeping his eyes, hips, and feet in sync. That coordination also translates to the catch point with his very natural ball skills to track, frame, and finish. Overall, it might bother some teams, but he doesn't have better size. But he doesn't have better size. But Golden also doesn't have any glaring flaws to his game that would keep him from becoming a productive pro. He can play inside or outside and become the go-to target for an NFL offense. What have we heard with these two prospects, these two wide receiver prospects that Goody has met with, right, with top 30 visits? Both of them can play inside and outside. Mm-hmm. More so Matthew Golden outside than Egbuka, but Egbuka with that moving Z experience and Greg Cosell saying, hey, this dude within a Sean McVay style system, which is what Green Bay runs, would fit right in. So what do you think about that scouting report there early on?
Yeah, I mean, going a couple different quarterbacks, he's worked through it. I like Golden. I like his speed. We want a fast guy. I think Jaden Reed's quick. I don't think that if we don't have a 4-2 guy on the roster, or playing currently, I don't think that the offense is going to completely fall off a cliff, right? I don't think that that's going to completely hurt us. I think we really leaned into our run game. I think we forget about that. Like, we were a run-heavy offense because we had to lean on Jordan. Let's work off of that. Let's get our play-action game going. You might not need that 4-2 speed to beat a play-action. I mean, Clay, you get sleight of hand in college football, right? You're sitting there, that first down play action, those backers just sit there, dude, right over the top. That's all it takes. So something simple like that, you might not need that breakneck speed.
Yeah, and it all comes down to how defenses are going to play Green Bay as well, right? Like, they're going to play you based off the tape last year until you prove otherwise, right? And what did we do last year? How many plays did you see us take the top off? Didn't happen a whole lot. Right. We just worked underneath, worked the crossers, worked the slot cross.
I mean, yeah, if you draft Golden to take over Dobbs' spot and just run streaks all game, cool. But what's his stamina at? How long is he going to be able to do? How long is he going to be able to run 4.24? I mean,
that's stuff that dumb, out of shape people like us usually don't consider. We're just going, man, why ain't he getting open out there? And it's like that. I watched Dobbs do that 2 years ago, and I've talked to you guys about that. That boy was running go route. I think I counted 6 straight go routes. And he never came out of the game. I'm like, how in the hell is he standing up right now?
How are you able to sell it each time?
Yeah.
I mean, like, you have a corner in front of you. You have a safety over top. You have to make him commit to you. If not, Jacobs is getting blown up in the backfield, or the deep in, or the little tight end curl 8 yards down. He's going to get blown up if you can't sell that streak.
Yep, that's a fact, man. All right, that's going to do it for hour 1. For those of you listening on the pod, we're going to continue this conversation on the other side for hour 2, breaking down Matthew Golden and then diving into some edge prospects as well. But we'll see you over on hour 2. We appreciate y'all.
For those of you listening on the pod.
Emilio coming in the clutch. You ain't no Tim, but that was pretty solid, man.
No, and I remembered to pause it. It was still on loop, so I saved it. We're good.
We're growing. We're growing every day. All right. Continuing here, welcome to hour 2. Continuing with the Matthew Golden scouting report. Let's look at the strengths here. Average size measurables, but doesn't play small. That's huge. Graceful athlete with outstanding control and release and route breaks. Uses different techniques to make corners feel his presence, opening comebacks and curls. Favorite route is a 14-yard curl. Ooh, you know what I just immediately thought of? So I'm trying to think of the set. It's a balance ace set. Okay, so we're going ace 12 or 12 ace, I should say. So you're going 12 ace nasty, which is nasty splits. Mm-hmm. You're a balanced set with a tight end on each side, and they love to run the play action pass. And Christian Watson's great at this. They've got these 2 choice routes. What we're talking about with Matt LaFleur's offense. Here's another example of those choice routes. It's a go curl is essentially what it is, and you're reading the safety. If the safety flips his hips to run, you chop that thing down and turn it into a 14-yard curl, right? If the safety you catch flat-footed, run right by his ass. Yep. That right there is what they're talking about, being able to, make his presence known in the route running to where the safeties would flip their hips and you chop that thing down on a 14-yard curl. That's just, to me, Emilio, that seems like the result of putting the fear of speed into defenses and being able to chop that thing down.
It's all about selling that. I mean, you could be selling the curl the whole time, do a little mini chop and you're off to the races. You know what I mean? Head fake. If you get people to bite on that, it's what you can make your hay with, but you got to be able to sell it. If not, no one's believing you. I mean, you could have 4 or 5 speed and still sell a streak, you know?
Yeah, that's fact. All right. Stem burst creates separation on posts and
I like
corners.
that. I like that.
What we're talking about with the stem, and you tell me if you understand it differently here, Emilio. Like, let's say you're running a post route, and let's say you're in the 2 on the right. You're gonna run like a go to 10 to 12 yards, and then you're gonna turn it into a post, right? The stem is that break point, right? That pivot point, right? When you get to the top of the stem, now you're making your cut, right? Stem burst creates separation on posts and corners. That's huge. And again, we just got through talking about choice routes in Matt LaFleur's offense, specifically the wolf concept, where it's a 1 with an out, a 2 with a corner. It's saying he excels at that. So
yeah, and coming out of your stem, I mean, how are you arriving to that stem? Are you chopping down? Are you over your skis? Are you under your skis? Are you way outside your shoulder width? I feel like there's a 1,000 ways you can look at it. Do you need a push off? If you sell the dude, you know, can you kind of bend it? Can you kind of arc it just a little bit towards the outside, but you're running a corner? You know what I mean? You're not running the post. You're bending it a little bit to the outside, bring it back in, and I'm out. There's just such subtlety that if you have a guy that can handle that coming right out of college, pro ready, 10 years ready to go, I like that. I do like that. You know, Golden could do that. I think that Egbuka can too.
Above average focus at catch point with fast, steady hands, superb body control to turn and frame the football midair, tracks ball well downfield, often had to slow and adjust his track with Quinn Ewers' deep ball. Look at this shot at Quinn Ewers there.
Oh, wow.
Hey, if he didn't, basically, let me paraphrase what Dane Brugler just said. If Quinn Ewers' noodle arm wasn't out there on the field, he wouldn't have had to slow down and catch the ball. Probably would have had a couple more tutters.
If he had Joe Milton throwing him the ball, he'd be in good shape.
Yeah, he let that thing go from the 5-yard line in the south end zone at Neyland. It landed out there on Broadway, right? Dude had a cannon for an arm, man. Cannon for an arm. I still don't think he's going to be a great quarterback. But somebody just traded for him too, didn't they? Pretty sure.
Yeah.
Patriots just traded him for a pick. So anyway, much stronger than expected, especially when finishing catches through contact. Impressive awareness post catch. Immediately change and run angles to make first man miss. Averaged at least 20 yards per catch in 10 of 16 games in 2024. That's wild. Returned 2 kickoffs for touchdowns. Here we are again. Another returner. In 2023, his career 25.8 yards per kick return, 28 attempts for 722 yards and 2 touchdowns. Very self-confident and embraces competition. Emerged as a top option in Texas's talent-rich wide receiver room in 2024. Coaches trusted him to play every wide receiver position in the playbook.
What I really did like about Golden, and what DJ, I think it was DJ or Ross Tucker, somebody, who did Texas go to in a pinch? I mean, that was Golden. Golden was their go-to guy. Golden was the one they wanted to go to on third down. He was the one that I threw to. You'd throw to on fourth down if you were in trouble. That's one thing I did like. And again, any guy that wants to play special teams willingly, not being forced out there, hey, I want, winners want the ball when the game's on the line. Best replacement quote you could probably have. That's the truth. You know what I mean? If you want the ball in your hands, let's go. That's what I want to see.
Yeah. I see the Kyle Williams talk in the chat. We'll hit on that here in a second for sure before we wrap up. Here are the weaknesses, and I love that this is a short list of weaknesses here. Holy cow. Not a dynamic make-you-miss athlete in space, doesn't always play up to his time speed. Can get stuck at tops of routes when facing physical defensive backs. So somebody's in his hip pocket, bumping and running might be a little bit of an issue. Inconsistent blocker and can get blasted off his spot. NFL scout, quote, I won't kill him for it, but I need to see more grit out of him when he isn't the target. Now, we just got through talking about Egbuka literally on inside run plays going in and digging out the mock backer. So strength Egbuka, weakness Matthew Golden. Strength for Golden, more speed, right? More physical ability in that regard over Egbuka. Didn't play on special teams coverages aside from kickoff returns. Missed 2 games as a freshman after suffering rib injury October 2022. Missed the final 3 games of his sophomore season, November 2023, because of turf toe injury that required surgery. So it sounds like he's got a few more injuries than Egbuka. So after hearing all this, Emilio, I feel way better about Ibuka than I do Matthew Golden, but I'm a little bit higher on Golden now. Hearing how he operates at the top of the stem. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I like that football play, but I'm definitely still more on Ibuka. And again, national championship. Would you want to dive into that? Goody always is looking at that kind of a player.
Mm-hmm. All right, so there you go. Again, that's 2 receivers to look for. That's Matthew Golden. He's in the 37 spot. Packers had a top 30 visit with him. And, of course, Emeka Egbuka in the 20 spot on our board. We also had a top 30 visit with him. So 2 that could potentially be the pick at 23. They may be looking at Matthew Golden potentially falling to 54. I just do not see that happening. That's what makes me think they've got to seriously be considering him at 23, because I think he'll be
Akron. Or is that your boy Appy State? I mean, it looks like Akron, isn't it? Poor guy getting just the fist to the mouth.
I think that's Akron. I believe that's Akron.
Poor
I could
guy.
be wrong. It doesn't look like Appy State, but I may be
No,
wrong.
yeah, I was going to say the colors weren't right, but poor guy. That's
getting posterized, man, for sure. It's this hand that gets me right here. It's just kind of
it's like limp.
Looking for something, right? It's just
Give me help, yeah, please.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go. There's a little wide receiver talk. Continuing that wide receiver talk, Greg Rice says NFL MDD, not sure what that is.
Database.
Got it. Has Kyle Williams wide receiver at 95. There's some people, man, the Kyle Williams hype is picking up, and some people love him. And you guys know I've been very vocal about where he's at on our big board. Let me pull it up real quick and kind of talk about why we've got him there. And this is why we build the board early, is because there's going to be plenty of hype for Kyle Williams. That's obvious. There's going to be some people that think he's a first-round pick, and that's cool. Hey, all right. I want to know how people felt about him at the end of the year. What the hell happened? Why all of a sudden it's, whoa, this dude is the real deal, right? So with Kyle Williams, and he may end up being a great receiver. Who knows? We've got him in the 10, let's see, what is that? The 194 spot. Yeah.
Just 100 spots off, Greg. Just 100 off.
We got him at 194. Here's why he's there. In 2022, PFF said there were 252 other receivers that were better than him. All right. In 2023, PFF said there were 388 receivers better than him. Now, in 2024, he takes a huge jump, and they said he was the 64th best wide receiver. Okay. The PFF big board at the end of the college football season had him at 152. The consensus big board had him at 147. All right. So that sounds like that's nowhere near being a first-round pick, right? Now, one of the outliers, Senior Bowl, he dominated. Daniel Jeremiah said this dude turned heads at the Senior Bowl. Guys, that's huge. You cannot negate that at all. Like, think of the people in the past who have had great Senior Bowls. Here most recently, last year, the cornerback, help me out, Emilio, went to the Eagles.
Toledo. Yes.
Yeah. Toledo, that's how we all remember. Quinyon Mitchell balled out. And it's still a small school. Went to the NFL, played damn good football, right? Mm-hmm. So you got it.
Was Puka? Did he ball out in the Senior Bowl? Did he go to that?
I think he may have. It was one of the All-Star games. I think it might have been the Senior Bowl. Yeah.
I feel like that could be like Jack Bech this year. You know what I mean? Like someone that tore it up in the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, and like with Puka, you say, okay, let's compare him to Kyle Williams, right? Like, okay, is their rapid ascent similar?
Okay.
It's not because Puka was graded extremely high by PFF. Like that was the reason I was standing on the mountain for him. Like, bro, why are people overlooking this kid? And then you see him run the gauntlet at the combine, and I think he had the fastest speed at the gauntlet, like meaning miles per hour, running and catching the ball and changing, eye locking while you're catching it. And it's like, why is nobody on him? And lo and behold, he gets drafted. As he falls in the draft, I'm going, I guess they were right, man. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Then he gets to the league and he dominates. That's right. We were right. So with Kyle Williams, it seems different because the PFF isn't really matching up, and it's not everything. But here's the other thing. As I was beating myself up going, man, why don't I have him in the top 100? Should we move him up? Should we change that? Because now
you're asking me, right? Because he had because his new grades are all so much higher.
Consensus big board and stuff has them significantly higher and all that, right? Well, the 33rd team released their recent top 200, right? He was 159 on their list. And again, that's not everything, but it's just there's nothing in terms of information across all this stuff that we've collected. And his RAS, I need to double check it. If somebody wants to check that for me real quick, I'd greatly appreciate it in the chat. See what Kyle Williams' RAS is, because we had him in as a 0 in here. So he was less than a 7 RAS when we took him in. So I don't know. I want to believe. I don't have anything against him, right? But then you go, okay, who did he play against? He played at Washington State. It's not like he was playing a bunch of powerhouses. I can't imagine. I don't know what conference that is, but you don't think of that being like this powerful program, right? So it's hard for me. Now he does meet the athletic threshold for the Packers with the data that we have in that regard, but yeah, I'm trying to see if anybody's got the RAS. It takes the RAS a while to load. I'll get it loading here on my screen so we can at least try to take a look at it because I'm curious to see if that's accurate. And that's our next step, Emilio, and it's going to be grinding. We've got to make sure we get all the RAS information in and covered. It's best to wait the week of the draft because it's constantly. I want to say somebody's. I think it was actually today, April 10th. Was it Will Johnson was supposed to do something today? I believe.
Yeah, for his pro day. I think they said that. Who was that? I want to say it was Move the Six, but they were talking. Yeah, it'd be one of those where you kind of play it out because he had that injury. Hey, we're not going to do the combine, but hey, here's our pro day. Hey, a little tight on the 10th. I don't know if I can run today. I'll see everybody at the draft. You know what I mean? And just kind of drag this thing out. I definitely think that's a possibility. But little games that they play, man, that's the truth.
Yeah, there it is. Okay, so Greg Rice says MathBomb says 7.67. So we need to give him a 1-point bonus. I've got it loaded up now. I'm going to double check it right now. And that's what we're looking for if you got it off the site there. Kyle Williams is wide receiver. We're showing actually the updated one. I'm looking at the site right now, and I appreciate you looking that up, Greg. Thank you for checking that. We've got it right here, and it's actually a 6.35. So now he was not disqualified from the threshold, but he was lacking the agility testing. And his 40-yard dash was a 4.40. Arm length only 30.13, hand size 8 3/4. So I'm just looking at Amelia. I just don't see it.
Yeah. You're taking it all in consideration. Is this a guy I want to take a chance on?
And it's where it gets dangerous because I'm trying to sell myself on it. I'm trying to convince myself he's that dude, and I just have nothing that lines up. So, all right, so we'll stick with the 0 there. But thank you for looking that up, Greg. If you've seen it on Twitter, it might have been the early RAS, and then
even look up 5-6 spots there. I'd rather take our boy Efton out of Eastern Washington with that pick. Some dude that started in 22 at 176, 23 he was 36, and 24 he was the best receiver in college football. Okay, getting no respect going at the 242. PFF and 267 consensus big boards. All right. Yeah, that would be the kind of guy at that sort of depth that I would take the poll on,
Yeah. Siggy coming in here late, man. He said, I'm not on Lombardi time. No, you aren't, sir. But hey, this show sucks, so it don't matter.
How many times are you going to come to my press conference late?
Sit your butt outside, sir. Now, welcome in.
His receiver.
Appreciate you swinging through. All right. So anything else you want to hit? Oh, you know what? We've got one more thing to hit on Matthew Golden real quick. I should have did this before we wrapped up. I got ahead of myself wanting to dive into that Kyle Williams stuff because I'm fascinated with it, man. I want to believe. I just can't. I can't find enough information to believe. But I'm going to pull up a screen grab here real quick to cover our butts. But this came from Greg Cosell on One Bills Live, which is obviously a podcast that's geared around the Buffalo Bills. I want you guys to hear what he had to say about Matthew Golden here. That's perfect because he is a young whippersnapper. So here is Greg Cosell on Matthew Golden over on One Bills Live. Make sure you go give it a retweet. You can find this. I quote tweeted it out. Here's the audio from his take on Matthew Golden.
And he's a guy you can line up anywhere in your formation. He can run routes from different splits, different looks. I think he's pretty refined as a route runner. There's a sense of pace and tempo to his routes. Steve, you know what I'm talking about. One of the things corners always say is that some guys that make every route look the same, those guys are hard to play against. He has a feel for just how to run routes. He knows how to change speeds when it's appropriate. He understands the leverage of defensive backs to create separation. And I think, put aside the 4.29, he does have a vertical dimension that I think can transition to the next level. He's got sudden acceleration. He's got an extra gear. To me, he was this year's Brian Thomas, not the same kind of receiver. I don't want people to think he's the same kind of receiver because he's not, but in this sense, last year I thought Brian Thomas was an ascending player when I watched his LSU tape. And I thought when he got to the NFL, you'd see that. And that's exactly what happened in Jacksonville this year. And I think Matthew Golden is that guy this year. I think he's just going to keep getting better. And I think he'll be an ascending player once he gets to the league.
Emilio, I think that's huge, man. And I love that he always mentions that, when someone's an ascending player, like you're getting better as you're coming into the league. You're starting to hit your stride. Because some guys, they kind of peak, they start to taper back a little bit. Then they get to the NFL, they're overwhelmed, and they never really get going, right? Like Mike McCarthy used to say all the time, Coach McCarthy would say, there are no bad players in the NFL. There's good players and there's great players. Sometimes the difference between the great players are just being put in the perfect situation, the perfect time. Everything just kind of clicks and you go, right?
Yep.
I think that's a real thing. I really do.
I think that's true. I think that's completely true. And that was what I was going to bring up. I sent it over in the text, but listening to Move the Sticks, they were talking about kind of this draft, right? So he was breaking it down into a couple categories, saying obviously this is the last full week, right? Coming up here before the draft. He said that it's, this is where they're going to polish the draft board. This is where they're in their final meetings at this point right now. Breaking it into 3 settings: starters, not stars for this draft, traits versus production, and positional value versus quality of player. He said that this draft's a little bit different. So let's look at it as, all right, starters, there are a lot of starters, not a bunch of blue chip stars, right? What are his traits versus what did he produce in college, or what could he produce in the NFL? And then positional value versus quality of player, like edge rusher. Do we want to take an edge rusher because it's an important position, or do we need a super good guard that just fell to us, or something like that? So I think those are kind of things we need to keep in mind. Also, DJ was saying he feels it's a stick and pick draft, where they ask him to make a lot of trades, obviously on TV, but he thinks that, hey, if you're in your spot, take that pick because you've done your research, you've already gotten there, and with it not being a bunch of stars, you really need to kind of do that research to know, is this guy going to fit in your team, in your scheme?
It's huge, man. And you notice there was nothing there that said, yeah, focus on need. Like, as fans, we're always, well, we need this, we need that, we need this. That's not how scouts operate. That's not how GMs operate. They're not going into the draft going, boys, hey, here at this 23rd pick, we better go get us a receiver. It's just not how it works, man. It's how does the board fall? Where's the quality? Where's the depth in the draft? Where are the clusters? And like you said, are you gonna go traits over this? And I love what Bucky Brooks said a couple episodes ago. If you guys, J. Cole said, just watch Move the Sticks today. It's unbelievable, man.
Yep.
Whether you're listening on the pod, they do such a better job than I do trying to articulate through a podcast. They crush it, dude. So, but one of the things Bucky Brooks said was, you don't go to the grocery store hungry.
Never.
Don't go to the grocery store hungry. That's what you're doing when you're going into the draft form. We got to get a receiver. Got to get a 3-tech. We got to, you want that. You want it, but you try to force it and you're going to screw it up, man.
Yeah, I go to the grocery store hungry. I'm leaving with about 4 bags of Chex Mix. Give me a DiGiorno. Let me get, it can get out of hand. And you know what else they were talking about was, you got the GM looking at players, right? Obviously they're there to pick them. They're there to make that decision. But we've talked about not looking just this year, not just, hey, what position can we fill right now to make us better right now? Like, what position is going to need to be filled in 2 years? What position is going to run out in 3 years? How are we going to chase that down? And then what got me today was when they were talking about we know our developmental coaches. That was big. So, like, you're at GM, you're taking into consideration, hey, DA can develop the crap out of a safety or a corner. Mm-hmm. Perfect. Okay, maybe let's take a little bit of a developmental guy in the 6th, 7th round that we can get DA's hands on so that he can turn him into something. Maybe we don't need to reach in the 1st or 2nd to get a corner that is, top of the value, top of the list because DA's so good at it. But hey, maybe we do need to we struggled with our D-line coach last year. Maybe we just need to get a starter at that position and kind of set him and go, just because we don't have as good of a developmental program in that position group.
That's something we don't talk about often either, man. And we don't have time to do it here, and nor am I qualified to. But how important the positional coaches are in the development of a player. We're in this Madden mindset of that guy's going to be an 82 overall, and he's going to come in, and by year 3, he's going to be a 90. And we're not even taking into consideration what is going on with the coaches. Or do we have the right guy in place? And it sounds like the Patriots coach we brung is going to be the new defensive line coach, defensive coordinator experience. We now have, because he was the DC for Gerard Mayo in New England, and he worked for Bill Belichick for years. We need to do a breakdown on him next. We need to get into some coaching stuff during the downtime for sure.
Yeah.
But so now you got a former DC that's going to be your defensive line coach. Derek Ansley is your DB coach, former DC, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jeff Hafley is your DC, and he's a DB whisperer, right?
Yep.
So
Camp left, right, because he was coaching the linebackers, right? He's now a DC. Did our linebackers get better this year? Did Edrin Cooper take off? Like, I mean, and that's something that Goody's paying attention to as well. Hey, I got to make sure that I know who I'm, one, bringing in to do the job, and two, can he do his job, or do I need to kind of hold his hand to get us through? Like, is that going to be the, kind of slide under the rug thing, or hey, I want to give you this project. That's maybe that's why we didn't, we haven't loved LVM, right? We had a D-line coach that didn't work out. Maybe they just couldn't develop him. Maybe we just couldn't get him to that point of squaring him away. That's why, hey, we don't like kiln guys. We don't like guys that are going to be a ball of clay because we don't have the kiln. That's the problem.
And that's what Ryan has done a good job talking about too. It's like people act like we haven't done anything to the edge room because we didn't go out and overpay for someone who wasn't worthy of that contract. And this free agency class, we talked about it. You can go back and watch the show before free agency got here. We're like, ain't nobody in here we really love. Last year it was give me Xavier McKinney. We thought Aaron Jones was coming back, so we wasn't on the Josh Jacobs train. If we knew Aaron Jones was going to be gone, hell yeah, Josh Jacobs would have been a dream, right? And we talked about him a little bit, like which version of Josh Jacobs are you going to get? Obviously, we got the good version as opposed to the bad. But this year's free agency, and hearing Ryan talk about it, he's like, you guys don't even realize the change they made. They pulled the defensive line coach and said, hey, bro, this ain't working. This wasn't good enough. And they went and tried, and they think they upgraded. Time will tell if they actually did. So that's the change they made because there wasn't that much on the market. There just wasn't. And I know there were some podcasters standing on the table for Milton Williams. Milton Williams is a good interior defensive lineman. He is not great. I'm sorry. You're not going to convince me that Milton Williams is worthy of top defensive tackle money. That's just crazy to me. For the right price, absolutely, I would have loved him. But I never got on that train and got roasted for a couple of times there. So yeah. Mad Butcher 915 says, can't wait for the NFL draft. It's going to be awesome, man. The stage is going up. Matter of fact, I think I put a tweet out earlier. If I can find it here real quick. I don't think we'll get in trouble for showing this.
Clay, I was thinking about that. Whoa.
Is that you or me? That's you, ain't it? What is going on?
My system froze.
Let's just sit here awkwardly for the podcast crowd. You know what I mean?
I don't know what just happened there. Okay. I was thinking that today, like, I cannot believe we're about to be in Green Bay in 2 weeks.
Dude, it's unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. And the plans that we've got set up is just like, it's going to be great, dude. I feel like we're getting the best of both worlds. We're going to get to take in the draft and hang out at the draft. And then go, and like Ryan has talked about, man, I want to go to the draft, and he is going, but it's like, I understand what he's saying. Not being able to do your live stream, and we're getting to do the live stream too. Like, it's just the best of everything. It's going to be absolutely awesome. I'm excited. So
yeah, I can't believe I'm going to see Lambeau for the second time in my life, and it's going to be a draft with hundreds of thousands of people there, seeing all the fans. I mean, it's going to be absolutely wild.
Yeah, look at this video they posted earlier, man. Check it out. Building the stage. Draft stage in Green Bay going up, dude. It's going to be awesome, man. Absolutely awesome.
That Sunbelt rental, man. They're getting a lot of use out of them little lifts there, Clay.
That's right. Buy stock in that local company that they rented those off of. They paid a premium for that. So again, that was posted, that was tweeted out by the Packers Twitter team there. Really, really cool. Let's do a top 30 visit real quick. You want to? We got a little bit of time. Is that all right with you?
Please.
We got our most recent top 30 visit. It came across the wire the other night while we were live. We put a little article together for you all. Let's dive into Tulane's cornerback Micah Robinson. Okay, Packers reportedly schedule a top 30 visit with Tulane cornerback Micah Robinson, per team sources, targeting him as a potential late round flyer in the 2025 NFL Draft, ranked number 439 on our PTA big board. Robinson brings a compact 5'10", 183-pound frame and blazing speed, offering the Packers a raw but intriguing prospect to develop in their secondary. I want to mention this too. He had limited information on him, but he graded really, really well with PFF in 24. So what we decided to do is give him, since he wasn't on the consensus big board, he wasn't on the PFF big board, we gave him like a 600 rating on the consensus big board to bring him way down.
Yep.
Because we didn't, or else he would have been sitting up there probably in the top 15, and that's not where he needs to be. So we'll adjust that as we can get some more information on it. But here he was in high school. Dog, I don't know about you, man, but there's nothing better than high school football, dude. To this day, I love going and watching high school football, man. Just look at the background, that small stadium and everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, we were up your way last year watching Sammy's last game in the playoffs, in the Tennessee high school playoffs. We were up in Gibbs. That's a cool stadium up there back in the woods, man. That was really neat.
Yeah, I have to go check it out. And just thinking, like, bro, you were at school all day long. You know what I mean? You got up at 7, 8 a.m. You went to your science class, your social studies, and let's just strap up under the lights and go crack some skulls. Like that, yes. I miss that, man.
Same, dude. Same. All right, scouting report coming out of high school. A 3-star recruit from Westlake High School in Atlanta, Georgia in the 2021 class. Micah Robinson stood out as a versatile athlete with a knack for making plays. At 5'10", 165. He started as a cornerback and return specialist. You catching a theme here tonight? All three players we've talked about, return specialists, right? Showcasing electric speed and quick feet that also translated to track, where he ran a 10.8-second 100-meter dash. His senior tape highlighted instinctive ball skills with a fearless tackling mentality, earning him all-region honors. Robinson committed to Tulane over offers from Appalachian State and Coastal Carolina, seen as a high-energy prospect with upside. As a matter of fact, I think he signed with someone else before Tulane. So the article just kicked in Tulane there, and we're going to talk about it. But here are his PFF grades. 2020, a 56.2. 2021, 75.2. 2022, 73.5. 2023, 69.8. And then look at this jump when he got to Tulane. In 2024, 84.3. Like that, I mean, that's impressive. That's really impressive. He played 60 snaps in the box, but the majority of his snaps came out wide with 477. Look at the run defense grade, Emilio. 90. My man at 6 foot 184 sticking his nose in there on the run. Mm-hmm. So here's the college stats. Robinson played 4 years at Furman. That was the small school, okay? So he actually got recruited to Furman before transferring to Tulane for the 2024 season. At Furman, he appeared in 11 games in 2021 as a reserve, 13 games in 2022 with 35 tackles and 3 interceptions, and 10 games in 2023 with 34 tackles and 2 interceptions. After transferring to Tulane in 2024, he played in 14 games, recording 33 tackles, 2 interceptions, and 1 forced fumble, while showcasing versatility by splitting time between left and right cornerback. That's huge, because when it comes to cornerback, you've got a dominant eye. If a corner can play both sides, that means that dominant eye isn't affecting, his production in that regard. That can be a very, very important asset as well. He also played strong safety against Navy's heavy running attack in Week 12. So in Week 12, they knew Navy was going to run a triple option. So you know what? Put our boy in at safety. He can tackle. They moved him from corner to safety and put him in the center of that defense to help key and diagnose that triple option. Pretty cool. So I'm sure you played against Navy in college football, right? They do still run a triple option, right? I'm pretty sure they do.
Are you kidding me? I was just going to tell you, I actually picked up for the ultimate team. I picked up the flex bone, Air Force's flex bone, so that I could actually, because I mean, dude, you get that going. Sometimes it gets a little confusing back there. We ran the triple option in high school my last year. Terrible idea. Unless anybody was like, the whole team's got to be committed to it, right? You got to be willing to do your one job and keep to it. And just not something a whole class of kids can learn in a year. But I do like it. And yeah, being able to have that flexibility, we want to see guys with versatility, right? We've always chased that. The dude only had he had 400 snaps outside, 500 snaps outside. You wouldn't think that he has that versatility, but hey, let's put him in a box. 60 plays. That's a game. He played a whole game in the box. He's out there on extra point blocks. Willing. Guy wants to be on the field.
Yeah. Greg Rice says, I do not see Micah on the NFL mock draft database. You won't find him anywhere. What's crazy, Greg, is he graded out an 84.3 on PFF. Their own website don't even have him on their big board.
Yep.
It's like, what are we even doing here? You're saying he was the 23rd best corner in all of college football, but he doesn't even meet the criteria to make your big board. That's just wild. So, again, we're going to monitor him real close because he could jump way up quick. If all of a sudden he pops up on the consensus big board in a 200 spot or something, we really got to consider, all right, there may be something there. We might need to adjust it. But as it sits right now, I would say late round, maybe undrafted free agent is what it feels like.
Mm-hmm.
So, RAS card was a 6'7". He measured in at 5'10.5", 183 pounds, 14 bench reps, 35-inch vertical, broad jump of 10.03, the 40-yard dash, Emilio, 4.3840 with a 2.55 20-yard split, earning a 9.13 grade score, and then 10-yard split of 1.52, scoring a 9.06. Now, the shuttle was rough, 4.55, that's horrible. 3 cones, 7.06, pretty bad too.
Mm-hmm.
So what you got there is straight line speed. That sounds like a returner is what it sounds like.
Yeah, you'd like to see that 3 cone under 7 for sure. Though, I mean, I'm not mad at the fact that what do we always need in a corner, Clay? We need somebody that can match speed of a wide receiver.
That's right.
But that's why you got to take those numbers into account. But that's why we also don't have to be completely worried about a wide receiver speed. Do we need the 4.2? This guy's only got 4.3. I mean, could Golden get past him? Sure, but I'd rather put my money in the speed in corner.
Yeah. Yeah. So here we go. Detailed scouting report entering the draft at the combine. Robinson measured 5'10", 183, 30-inch arms, clocking a 4.38 second 40-yard dash, 36-inch vertical, although the card actually says 35. There might have been a pro day involved. His 2024 tape shows a feisty cover man who thrives in off-man coverage, using his speed to recover and close on routes. He's a willing tackler with a nose for the ball, though his slot frame and shorter arms can get him out-muscled by bigger receivers. His quickness shines in zone schemes, fitting Green Bay's flexible secondary looks, but he'll need to refine his footwork and press coverage. No shuttle was recorded, but his tape suggests twitchy, change of direction ability, projecting him as an undrafted free agent or a priority free agent with slot corner potential. Goes on to say injury and character concerns. Robinson's injury history is minimal. 2022 ankle sprain cost him no games. He played through a minor hamstring tweak in 2024, missing only one contest. His 47 career starts or career games signal durability. Off the field, he's a spark plug, high energy, vocal, and beloved by teammates for his hustle. A high school track and basketball standout. Robinson's competitive drive is unquestioned with zero character concerns. His draft projection. Micah Robinson profiles as an undrafted free agent or late 7th-round prospect in the 2025 NFL Draft, backed by his number 439 ranking on our PTA Big Board, but only because of his limited information on it. If we use PFF grade only, he would rank as a first-round talent, so we have inserted a 600 ranking for Consensus Big Board until further information becomes available. His speed and 28 starts make him a developmental stash for the Packers, who could sign him as a priority free agent or use as a late pick. His ceiling as a nickel corner or special teams ace hinges on adding polish and bulk, while his floor as a practice squad contributor aligns with Green Bay's knack for molding under-the-radar defensive backs like Rasul Douglas, a long-shot sleeper whose combine buzz could spark late draft interest. Again, that is Micah Robinson out of Tulane, most recent top 30 visit. So there you go. I'm excited to see what happens with him as well. And you are noticing that, Ted Thompson, Emilio, he liked to use a lot of his top 30 visits for undrafted free agents, right? Yeah. Goody seems to do that as well, but it's almost like he's taking maybe 10 to 15, like roughly half, a little less than half maybe, and focusing early in the draft as well. I love that combination. I don't know how you feel about it.
I think it's a perfect dispersion. Hey, we got to be able to say, hey, if this guy falls to us, do we love him enough to take him? Is he going to fit us? Is what he brings to the table what we want to bring into this locker room? I think that you do that with the top couple. All right, cool. Hey, then we did our research in the middle here. We got a couple of guys that we just want to get our eyes on real quick, and then let's take maybe 5, 6, 7 of those and try to find some gems in the late round. You do that full that full scouting report, right, Clay, in college football, and then you get the little green gem. That's what we're talking about.
Good to go. And then when you go from the green gem, you look at the traits. You go, all right, who's got the most traits? That's the key there, right? So I get frustrated sometimes because I get the green gem, but the guy without the green gems has more traits, and I'm like, this is tough.
And that's and that's a minor one compared to what Goody's going through in the scouting department, right?
I can only imagine the stress involved, dude. So looking at the updated board here are all the top 30 visits. We'll round out the show with this, guys. So at the top of the board, who have met with the Packers top 30 visit, James Pierce Jr., edge defender out of Tennessee in the 12 spot. And you got Shamar Stewart in the 15 spot, edge defender out of Texas A&M. By the way, let's just say this. James Pierce Jr. has met with the Packers twice now, and he was a captain on that team. All right. So it's mind-boggling to me what do you call it? God, what's the word I'm looking for? The unnamed sources that are saying he was a problem in Tennessee. Guys, I live about an hour and 15 minutes from Neyland. You live a lot closer. 30 minutes away, 20 minutes away, maybe?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Did you ever hear anything negative on James Pierce Jr. while he was at Tennessee?
Negative.
I never heard a damn thing.
You want to hear something negative? Nico didn't show up. Nico Iamaleava didn't show up to practice today because he wants a new contract.
Because he wants money.
He wants $2 more million, they said. I think he's at 2.5 right now. He wants 4.
Right. So the point is, like, unnamed sources are saying there's an issue there, and then it's, well, he's a bad teammate. So the team voted him as a captain, but he's a bad teammate? How does this make sense? Like, anyway, so James Pierce Jr., he does not meet the athletic threshold. That's the knock on him. But again, Packers must be pretty serious about taking a look at him, seeing he's a top 30 visit. Shamar Stewart, edge defender out of Texas A&M. Threshold, check. Met with the Packers before? Check. I think at the Senior Bowl. He dominated the Senior Bowl. Check, check. Top 30 visit. Check, 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 check. Like, that's one of those dudes that's lit up in the gold, like, okay, prime for the picking, right? We're going to have a list, too, at the end of this where we're going to have here are the players that are prime for the picking is what we're going to call it. So for the Packers. Next on the board in the 20 spot, Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver out of Ohio State. Team captain, check. Packers met with him early, check. Athletic threshold, check. Top 30 visit, check. So the only thing he's missing is Senior Bowl or he'd be in the gold. Right. So next in the 21 spot, Michael Williams, edge defender out of Georgia. Met with him early, that's a check. Athletic threshold, that's a check. Top 30 visit, that's a check. To the best of my knowledge, he was not a captain. Robert, shout out to Robert, avid listener, sent me another list of captains. I'll go through and see if Michael might have been on there. Nice. But I will say this, Greg Cosell really liked him. We gave him a 3-point bonus hearing him talk about him today. He felt like that Michael Williams is a more game-ready pass rusher than Shamar Stewart right now, but Shamar Stewart has more athletic upside, if that makes sense. So there you go. That's kind of those guys that are right there hovering around the top 20. Now next, in the 24 spot, offensive tackle out of Ohio State, Josh Simmons, captain, athletic threshold, early meeting, and top 30 visit. Next, you've got in the 26 spot, Savon Revel Jr., outside corner from East Carolina. Packers met with him early, athletic threshold checks, and a top 30 visit. Next, you got in the 36th spot, Tyleik Williams, defensive tackle out of Ohio State. Packers met with him early, athletic threshold checked, and the top 30 visit is in the books. We talked about Matthew Golden tonight, 37th spot. Versatile wide receiver out of Texas. Athletic threshold's good. Packers met with him early, and they scheduled a top 30 visit. Next, you got another golden boy here, golden goose in the 40 spot, TJ Sanders. He was at the Senior Bowl. It's a big check. Packers love their Senior Bowl guys. They met with him at the Senior Bowl. He meets the athletic threshold for defensive tackle, and he was a top 30 visit. Prime for the picking, right? Next, you've got Jacob Bayer, center, out of Arkansas State in the 104 spot. Packers met with him early, and they scheduled a top 30 visit with him. He does not meet the athletic threshold, okay? But again, when they're in the gold, that means they're a top 30 visit, and they're a Senior Bowl participant. That's what that means, okay? Yep. If you get the athletic threshold too, you can notice by the emojis, but we might want to change their color somehow too, Amelia, like to go, this is one step further. Like this makes more sense. So we may add that in. The only two that we got so far is actually TJ Sanders and Shamar Stewart, I believe. So next on the list is Isaiah Bond in the 118 spot on our board. The Packers met with him early, and they scheduled a top 30 visit. Unfortunately, he's got the purple box. What does that mean? Got the legal issues now, right?
I heard about that. I was listening to the show. That's no bueno.
Could be BS. Could be as serious an allegation as there is on the face of the earth. I know this. I have a hard time believing that between now and the draft, which is what, 13 days away? Yeah,
13, right? 13 days.
Yeah. I don't think Goody's going to be able to get the answers to that he wants in 13 days because it just
Honestly,
happened.
Once I heard you talking about that, I'm pretty sure Goody walked into the room and went ahead and took that magnet off the board and just kind of tossed it to the side and said, if the dude falls to the 7th round, maybe we'll take him. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't even think it's worth it.
I'm with you. If he's there late, you might, all right, let's take a chance. And listen, guys, we may be screwing up here, but at least there's not much guaranteed money involved.
Right.
And if it checks out that he was guilty of that, we don't want him nowhere near this team. That's the way I feel about it. But again, if he's innocent, that's pretty damn crappy. Somebody did that to him right before the draft.
Absolutely.
136 spot, Anthony Belton, offensive tackle out of NC State, Senior Bowl participant and top 30 visit. So
we want to give him a cheese, right? Though, because they at least they had a top 30 visit. Weren't we talking about if they at least met with him? Okay.
Let's do that because that way we can sort it by cheese all the way across the board. He's the only one that we've had so far, right? Yeah, we're good.
The other one was Micah, and I just threw that in there for you.
Oh, appreciate it. Yeah, it's important that we can pull up the cheese. That way we get them all on the same page when we get the draft night for sure. All right. Next, you've got in the 240 spot, Dalton Cooper, offensive tackle out of Oklahoma State. He was an East-West Shrine Bowl participant. He met with the Packers early, and he's got the top 30 visit as well. John Williams in the 293 spot, offensive tackle out of Cincinnati, East-West Shrine Bowl. Captain of his team, met with him early, top 30 visit, and he meets the athletic threshold. So you actually kind of, when you look at the athletic threshold and the fact that Dalton Cooper didn't check all the boxes with the threshold, that makes you think John Williams might be a little bit better pick than Dalton Cooper in that regard. Now, I want to say this about the threshold. What that means is they cannot be disqualified for qualifying for the threshold. And let me explain what that means. There may be limited testing, right? And he might not, we don't have enough information to determine if they're going to be in the threshold, but we're not going to penalize them for that. All the information we got suggests they would have met the threshold, okay? So if they don't have the heart emoji eyes there, what that means is they definitely, through the testing, were disqualified from meeting the Packers athletic threshold. And I want to say this for the 1,000th time. It does not mean the Packers are not going to draft them, okay? Right. There's some of that going around out there, and it cracks me up. It's like that's not what that means. It does mean the guys they do draft, they typically meet those requirements. So
right. That's like saying we're not going to take John Williams because he had a -1 RAS versus Dalton Cooper's -5, like a 7 to a 9. I mean,
bingo. All right, next you got in the 340 spot, Jason Marshall Jr. We talked about him, I think, last night. Outside corner from Florida, East-West Shrine Bowl. Packers met with him early. Also, he meets the athletic threshold, and he was a top 30 visit, but it is worth mentioning. He, along with Josh Simmons and Savone Rebel Jr., all had injuries this past year in 2024. Okay, so it doesn't mean we're taking them off the board and we shouldn't draft them. It just means Goody's looking into that, and if they take them, it means that checked out. That's what that means. So just something for us to dig into a little bit deeper. Next, you got Esa Pohl, offensive tackle, Washington State, wrestling background. Met with him early and a top 30 visit, offensive tackle there in the 365 spot. He does not meet the threshold, though. And then rounding it out was the guy we just highlighted in the 441 spot as it sits right now, Micah Robinson, cornerback out of Tulane. Obviously, the Packers had a top 30 visit with him. So anything you want to add to that before we wrap up, Amelia? I just thought let's run through that as often as we can to keep our eye on. These are the guys that seem to be kind of on the Packers, radar there. And why is that one gray? Are you in there doing something with Belton?
Yeah, I'm clicking on him.
Okay, cool. I was like, I hope I didn't screw something up.
No touchy.
Oh, by the way, I want to say this. I found out that Bo, is it Bo or Mbo?
It's Bo. It's Bo. Okay. Yeah.
I found out, I was like, where's Bo? I kept looking, I'm like, where's he at? He got deleted somehow. So I added him back in. Also, Azare Thomas is in the system twice with different numbers. I'm wondering if I screwed something up and moved Bo's name off of that grade at some point, and it got
little drag and drop issue.
Listen, user error here. This Redneckville USA here. Thank you for being patient. But I just say that because I added Bo in. We need to make sure we get many numbers in for him as possible. I think I got most of them in earlier, but I ran out of time, I know, and we need to get rid of that Azare Thomas. That's not accurate. So.
Okay, got it. Yeah,
go ahead.
No, we'll hammer that once we're done. All I was going to say was take a peek down there at the bottom right. We have 17 rows in here, right? So we're closing in on that 30. They're finalizing their board. Hey, we need to get these last 12, 13 kids in here, see what happens. We got to know, right? We're running out of time. We got to do it. Everyone's on the clock at this point. It's about game time.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting too, because I think last year we ended up with 28 that we knew of.
Yep.
So we may not get all 30. I hope we do, and I'm going to stay on Easton as much as I can. Like, bro, let's see if we can get all 30 this year. He is crushing it, by the way. You guys, if you're not following Easton Butler on Twitter, at Easton__Butler, dude's a godsend to Packer fans. I'm telling you, man. He's doing the Lord's work out there. So make sure you go give him a follow. So, all right, that's it. We're out. Tomorrow morning, we're going to do a morning show because, like I said, got a graduation dinner and everything tomorrow night. So in the morning, we're going to hit there's 3 edge defenders that were on that list. We're going to give you Dane Brugler's scouting report on those guys. Okay, we'll hit that. We'll also hit a little minimum threshold talk. I put an article together just talking about some of the past Packers that were the shortest, the lightest at the position, that kind of met the minimum requirement, that kind of set the minimum requirements. We'll hit on that a little bit in the morning. And then also we got a cool little article set up for those of you who are attending Green Bay. And even if you're not attending the Green Bay draft, it's just kind of things to do in Green Bay. So if you can't make it, maybe you can kind of dig into some of these historical sites that some of us are going to be trying to see and hit while we're there, to kind of make you feel like you're a little more there. And Emilio, you got to stay on my ass, bro, while we're up there. Let's make sure we're putting as much content out for these guys and gals that can't make it. That way they feel like they're a part of the process as well, man, because it's going to be a blast. So.
We'll get some clips. We'll get bananas. We got to stay hydrated. Got no cramping allowed. We'll get a GoPro out there. We'll get some firsthand.
Hold up a minute. Some people just heard you say we're going to get some bananas and a GoPro, and they're going, "What is going on right now?" He's talking about cramping up. You're still going, "What is going on right now?" When we were in Nashville and we were walking over to the stadium, he was eating a banana and carrying one. I'm like, why do you have a banana? He's like, "Bro, I ain't cramping up," because it was hot. I'm like, I'm a little dude carrying.
And then what happened? Clay's hobbling home across the bridge after we got done. He too many daddy sodas and
Captain Morgan Captain Morgan. I see, man. I seen that and I just gave him my wallet. I said, "I'll be back. Y'all just hold on to that."
I'm gonna buy the refill bottle because I'm coming back for it. Let me just hit these real quick from Move the Sticks. I forgot to go over them earlier. So they said just a couple of concern or what was he saying? DJ was saying different viewpoints across the board, even in different like franchises. So like even in Green Bay, we got different guys thinking completely different thoughts. On first, Tet McMillan, that he's a cruise control type of player. So is that
a negative? That's a negative, right?
Yeah. Like some people think that he's a cruise control, and then obviously you can flip that the other way. Hey, he's consistent, but he kind of he can still do the jump stuff like that. The other one was Ezraku. They said that some think that he could have power concerns. That hey, maybe he can beat him with speed and stuff like that, but in the long run, does he have that kind of physical power and strength?
Greg Cosell said the same thing, by the way. He does not win with power. You notice he doesn't have a Greg Cosell bonus. Doesn't mean we don't like Ezraku. The Packers hadn't met with him at some point, but that's, same thing with Greg Cosell.
Absolutely. And then Revel, they said that he's long and leggy, right? So obviously that could be a plus or a minus depending on the team. Buck was saying that he kind of reminds him of like a Sherman or like an older the Seahawks corner, like Legion of Boom era Seahawks corner. Kind of have that length, but keep him in front of you. And then the last one they had was Birch, Jordan Birch. The Oregon edge. They said that he could be kind of a tweener, and they're not sure, right? So those were just kind of some of the names that they were going through when he was talking to his scouts and people that he knows in all these franchises and stuff. Those were some of the major conversations that were coming up on play.
And Jordan Birch is interesting because he's 66 on our board, right? So you think that's fairly high. But notice there's a void in the Senior Bowl stuff. Even though he was at the Senior Bowl, he didn't stand out. We don't have an RAS. We'll double-check that as the week gets longer here. And Greg Cosell didn't have a bonus. So it's like nothing really to ride home there. He does meet the athletic threreshold, though.
Yep, DTDN tweener for Birch. Exactly.
There you go. And it's kind of like the old Bill Parcells quote back in the day. If you got two quarterbacks, you don't have a quarterback.
Mhm.
Right? If you got two starting quarterbacks, you don't have a starting quarterback. That's what he said. If you're a D tackle / edge, you're probably neither. You know,
Right.
and it doesn't mean you can't develop into one, but it's definitely something that, hey, you know, step back and ask yourself, why is this guy not standing out at either position, right? So
Absolutely.
good stuff. Emilio, I appreciate it. It's always fun talking ball with you, dude.
Dude, of course. I mean, the chat got a little bit out of hand. They were
What
They got-
day?
Clay. They got themselves. They were over
I wanna
here.
pat you on the butt and you poop in my hand. So
It was that kind of show. Huh?
Yeah,
All
it was
right, we'll go ahead.
that kind of a chat.
I might have to go back, mute our voices, and just watch the chat. All right, that's it. We're out. We'll see y'all in the morning at 8:30 a.m. Central Time. Get your butts out of bed. I know it's Saturday. AFAM, turn the Saturday morning cartoons off and hop in here and let's talk some Baltimore. All right.
There you
Everybody
go.
hit that like button on the way out. Join the Patreon group. Scan the QR
We got to
code.
get to 100. Whoever gets to 100 can get a high five from me at the draft. So
That's what's up.
in the Patreon group. So we're 5-6 away. Who's going to be the lucky winner?
Everybody just unlock the stream.
We just lost half the patrons.
Everybody have a good night. We'll talk to y'all tomorrow.
And we gone. We out.
Bye, guys.